Perfect. Awesome. Well, we can go ahead and kick things off because I know it's a little bit past the hour. But as I was just saying, thank you so much for joining us today, whether it's the morning or the evening for you on the final day of Climate Career Week. We're super excited to kick off the day talking about branding. Super, super excited to introduce you to Sharmila. If you were in the career coach panel yesterday, was that yesterday? Two
That
days
was
ago. Two
2 days.
days ago,
Yeah.
you have met her now. So I'll let her introduce herself, but just wanted to say thank you so much for offering up your expertise to all of us this morning.
My pleasure. Hi, everyone. It's so great to see everyone here from all over the world. So exciting. So let's get started. I first wanted to just thank everyone that helps put Climate Career Week together. Teradu, Climate Draft, Work on Climate, CrowdSolve, Climate People. I've been really enjoying the sessions this week. I hope you have as well. And we have 2 more sessions after this session. So at 9 a.m., we have the Women Founders in Climate. And then at 10 a.m., Open Door Climate with Daniel Hill. So RSVP to join those sessions. There's a QR code to your right. Hi, everyone. I'm Sharmila Singh, and I am the founder of Green Lens Consulting. I spend half my time consulting with businesses, helping them with their ESG strategies and zero waste initiatives, and half the time coaching folks who want to pivot into the field of climate. I've been in this field for a while, and I myself made my own pivot. So I support clients, helping them get really clear on the core skills, the expertise, the things that bring them joy, showcasing that for a pivot in a climate career. So I support with climate career pivots, also helping folks who want to advance in their career. I support folks with their application process. So just navigating that application process, how to start, where to begin, how to kind of monitor your application process. I support with interviews. I support building a cohesive brand around your resume and cover letter that also speaks to a career pivot. And then also brand development, which is what we're going to talk about today. And lastly, salary negotiations. So I've been in the field for about 14 years, and I've had the pleasure of consulting Fortune 500 companies, nonprofits, and municipalities. Here's just a snapshot of some of the brands, the companies I've had the pleasure of working with. And I really wanted to share these images with you. This is what brings me the most joy, working with teams and collaborating with teams. None of these sustainability initiatives happen in a silo. It takes a team. And so I really enjoy the collaboration with these teams. Looking at the top left, this is Bear Republic Brewing. We have Clover Sonoma at the bottom right. And at the top right, this is me with a group of Presidio graduate students. We are taking a field trip. This is when I was the career services director there. We're taking a field trip to the Salesforce Tower. So this is truly why I'm in this field, is I really love taking these initiatives and collaborating with folks and with teams. So to give you a snapshot of what we're going to be covering today, we're going to first talk about the core elements of a personal brand. What is it? And then talk about what it takes to build your personal brand. And then we're actually going to build your personal brand statement. So this is a great time, if you haven't already, get a notebook, get some paper, get a pencil or pen, because we'll be writing out these statements. You're going to be doing these live. Next, we're going to talk about taking that brand online, and then we're going to close out with some questions. So I would love to see a show of hands. How many of you have been in this scenario where you've been at a networking event or a conference and someone turns to you and says, "So tell me about yourself." And there's this moment of pause where you just kind of freeze. Like, wait a minute, what am I going to share? There's so much I'm doing. Where do I start? Or perhaps you start to speak and you're like, what am I even saying? A show of hands if that has happened to you. Yeah. Yeah. That's happened to me as well. So what I'm hoping to help you with today is create a nice cohesive statement that you can use when you're networking with folks. You can use this actually in your resume, at the top of your resume, in your LinkedIn, which we're going to talk about, but a nice cohesive statement that speaks to your skills, your expertise, your methodology, and perhaps what you want to do next, where you want to go. Your personal brand is your unique story. It speaks to the combinations of skills, experience, and personality that you want the world to see in you. To get more specific, it speaks to the skills you bring to a role, the value you bring in terms of impact, your expertise and methodology. All of these combined bring out your authentic self and essentially what sets you apart from others. So when you're thinking about building your statement, which we're going to dive into, I first want you to think about what is it that you do well. These are your core skills. These are the things that you also enjoy doing. These could be program management, research, communications, organization. So kind of think about those kind of key things that you feel like you do well. And then for those of you who are pivoting into a climate career, how does this relate to sustainability? Thinking about what are the climate issues that you're most passionate about? I'd love to see in the chats, what are people passionate about in the climate space? Is it energy efficiencies, oceans? I love that. Animals, carbon reductions, wow. Urban planning, yes. Thinking about what you're passionate about, what kind of impacts you want to make, this is the start. I love all of this. We need all of you. In addition, when you're thinking about kind of all of these impacts, I want you to create a through line between these impacts that you want to make and some of the core skills that these roles require. And these are likely skills that you have. Communications and leadership, program management, problem solving. We know there's a lot of problems to solve in climate, and analytical skills. So aligning kind of those impacts you want to make, translating them into, well, what needs to happen in this space? What are the actions that need to take place? So let's dive in. We're going to build. So now we're going to dive into the personal brand statement exercise. I'm going to walk you through these prompts. We're going to walk through them together. Have your pen and paper ready. And you're going to come away with key skills, qualities, traits that then we're going to plug in to part 2 of this exercise into your statement. So let's get started. The first prompt is, what is your essence factor? This is the core of who you are. I know I'm in my element when. What I mean by this is I want you to tell me about all of the times where you have been working on something. It could be in your professional life, but also in your personal life. And time just goes away. It could be like 3 hours later and you're just like, wow, I'm still doing this and I'm in a flow. This could be you're researching something or you're organizing something or you're in your garden. I would love to hear what folks are coming up with in terms of their essence factor when you're in your flow. Learning something new. Great, Krista. Analyzing, analytics, educating others. Thank you, Greg. Problem solving or in the woods. Connecting ideas. Deep thinking. Storytelling, editing. Great. Discovery. These are excellent. Business plans. Oh, I love all this stuff. So be sure to create your list. And now we're going to move on to your boss factor. This is the knowledge you hold and the skills you possess. People recognize my expertise in blank. I do not want you to get hung up on expertise here. Think about the things that you've just been doing for a long time. What are they? Also, anything you might have a certification in, a degree in. Take some time to jot down your expertise. People recognize my expertise in climate science. Excellent. Thank you, Lindsay. Fundraising, software, big picture thinking, storytelling and content. Great. design strategy. Perfect. So you're noticing we're hearing like hard and soft skills, right? So I want there to be a combination of the two. Building relationships that drive my reporting, fantastic. Event planning, training, fantastic. We're going to move on to this next prompt, which is your superstar factor. This is my favorite because everybody has a superstar factor. Commonly, these are the things where people comment on your ability to do. These are also the things that people are constantly coming to you for. So this could be those friends who are coming to you to help get organized, or they know that you're a deep listener. What are some of these superstar factors that come to mind? Putting out fires, yes. Connections, building connections. Taking stunning photographs, I love that. Bringing people together. What I love about this factor is that really it is the start of really showcasing your authentic skill set. I look at hundreds of resumes, and oftentimes what's missing is that kind of authenticity of what you do, how you do it, what is your methodology? Because typically these things that you're telling me, building good processes, building connections, you have a methodology behind it. There's a way that you do this. This is a whole other webinar, resume building, but I just want to, talk about this is that anytime that you can share these elements in your resume, do. If you look at your resume and it's reading like just action statements that could be transferred into a role description, it's not speaking to you. It's not speaking to your authentic self. So some of these terms that you're jotting down here, if you don't see them in your resume or they're not showcased in your resume, add them. Being there when I'm needed, loyal. These are beautiful. Okay. So now it's your turn to build your statement. This looks very Mad Lib style, and that's on purpose. We have fill in the blank. The reason being is I don't want you to overthink this. How many folks have spent hours and hours on a bio? Can I see a show of hands? I've been there. I'm like, wow, I've spent 3 hours on this. Yeah. So this is designed to avoid that. I want you to literally take all of those terms that you've built with your skills, your expertise, what brings you joy, and fill in the blank here. This will help shape what you do, for who, and how. I am a blank, known for blank and blank. I use my X skills for this to impact Y. I use this key trait to serve this. So I'm a visual person. I don't know about you. So I'm going to share an example here. Minimize my chats. Responsible supply chain professional with 7 years of experience working with Fortune 500 companies to create operational efficiencies and improve sustainable supply chains. Passionate about utilizing business as a tool for positive impact with proven experience in conceiving, developing, and implementing sustainable and ethical global supply chain strategies. So this is a nice, concise paragraph that speaks to what this person does for who and how. So now it's your turn. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to build your statements. I'm going to move back to this template section, and then I might move back to the example. So take a look at this template, start to plug in your terms, and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you, Caitlin.
Jamila, there's a question in the chat. I'm not sure if you want to answer it now, but it says, what about those of us whose answers to the statements were nearly all soft skills? Any advice for them? From
Yeah,
Ellen.
yeah, that's a great question. So if you're still identifying, say, like the first blank here, I am a, you could put professional, business professional. So there are these overarching terms that you could plug in here and add your soft skills using your known for a soft skill and soft skill to impact blank. Does that help answer your question? Having trouble with that last sentence. So you could add a hard or soft skill. I use this trait to serve. Think about the audience you wish to serve, who you want to work with, rather. Is it nonprofits, medium-sized companies, large companies, mission-driven companies? Brand statements are the new coffee. I love it. It's waking us up this morning. We're doing it. We have about one more minute left.
Another question, Jamila. Can these be aspirational? I saw someone ask, what if we're looking to pivot into something totally different? Does it have to be like concrete things you've done?
Oh, that worked.
Can be aspirational. If you're gonna use this in your LinkedIn page or on your resume, we want to make sure that how I would approach this is that you're speaking to the skills that you have right now, and then adding a line to speak to where you hope to go and your aspirations. So that combines the two. So you're still being authentic and true to, what you're capable of right now, what you're doing, and then speaking to, say, hoping to use my organization skills to make an impact in clean tech. Yes, let me go to the example again. Exactly, Natalie. This is where your transferable skills come in. So speaking to those core skills that you bring to any role, and then outlining where you want to go with those. So now I'd like to hear from you. We want the first bold soul who's willing to share their statement with us. The raise of hand, and feel free to unmute yourself. Sasha?
Okay, so full disclosure, I still didn't fill in the I use blank, the last one, but I wrote, I'm an environmental scientist known for my passion for biodiversity and commitment to nature-based solutions. I use my organizational and problem-solving skills to impact forest restoration and remediation. I use blank to serve NGOs and my community.
I love this. It's beautiful.
Just have to fill in my blank.
Yeah. And thinking about your blank, it could be, it's just funny to say, your blank. What are those things that really truly bring you joy and you enjoy doing? I bring my organizational skills, I bring my deep listening skills. That can help you fill in your blank. You could also fill it with another expertise, what people come to you for, what you're known for. That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Sasha. The next person I see is Peter Taylor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Taylor. I am a finance admin known for managing cash flow and paying the bills. I use my analytical abilities to clear communication to solve problems and grow startups into successful enterprises. And I use my comedy writing to serve team building and cohesion.
Beautiful. And I love the comedy aspect that you add and include. So we see that your two sides of your personality, two sides of what you do. I love that. Thank you for sharing. These are excellent. Patience. You want to go next?
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm a forward-thinking digital enthusiast known for thorough completion and articulate problem solving. I use my business acumen and communication skills to impact digital carbon emissions knowledge in my community. I use my resilience to serve my community through sustainability education and help businesses adopt sustainability practices.
Beautiful. I love that you use your resilience to solve these complex systemic issues. Really, really well done. Sienna Weinstein, you want to go next?
Sure thing. Yeah. So I am a career switcher known for being driven and optimistic. I use my creative writing and wildlife photography skills to impact the general public. I use my creativity to serve any company whose goal is to promote the conservation of wildlife worldwide.
Beautiful. I love this. I really love how it shows different, like a macro and micro viewpoint of how you do things through your photography and your interest and your knowledge. Really wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Stephanie Fisher.
Hello. I have reboarded my. I am a forward-thinking software engineer, recognized for my innovative mindset and empathetic approach. Leveraging my technical expertise, I contribute to cutting-edge companies and solutions, infusing their projects with creativity and compassion. My goal is I'm getting lost on the goal part, but I am driven to work in the climate space. I'm getting a little lost on that last part. Started strong, I think.
It started really strong, and I love this. You could just say with the goal of working in the climate space. Yeah.
Thank
This sounds great. Do you have any more that you want to share with it? Okay. Yes, this is common where if you want to speak to this pivot you're making, right? So I work with a lot of folks who are making that climate career pivot. Speak to all of those transferable skills, the core skills you bring, and then in your last line where you want to go. So hoping to work with a mission-driven organization, hoping to bring my skills and expertise to the climate space. If you're very specific, you could say a very specific industry. Show me how we align your skills into that space that you want to move into. Dana, I see your hand up. You want to share? Do
Sorry, my mute's on. Okay, I'm a seasoned brand and content marketing leader pivoting from tech to nature-based climate solutions. I'm known for being an equally creative and strategic thinker, first and foremost, a storyteller, pulling easy to understand storylines from complex information. And I have years of experience building bespoke marketing strategies. And I've spent my career leading and developing teams to deliver impactful creative that meets and exceeds organizational goals.
Wonderful.
It feels a little businessy, but I can person it up.
I love this. I think it's excellent for, say, in your resume and your LinkedIn. And if you want to personalize it a bit, one thing that can happen if we're writing these out and we're speaking to it, right? If you're networking and you're talking, it can sound a little robotic. Responsible supply chain professional, 7 years. So what I suggest is adding some passion statements. And the way to pull those could be thinking about, to soften it, like what are the things that you're most passionate about? What impacts do you want to make? What would you want to speak at a conference? What really motivates you as a person? So that can help soften it. Okay, this is excellent. So beautiful. I feel like I could listen to these all day, really honestly. I feel like I want to start like Friday morning personal brand statement time. Thank you for sharing these. So now that you have your statement, I want to talk with you about how to use it. You can certainly use it in the scenario we talked about earlier, where you're at a conference or you're networking and you get asked that question, tell me about yourself. So this statement is ready to go. But we can also take this online. And there are a lot of online channels, a lot of social media channels, but for the purposes of what we're talking about in terms of career, I really want to focus on LinkedIn. This is truly where folks are connecting, recruiters are recruiting. How many of you, I'd love to see a show of hands, have applied for a position and then have seen folks looking at your LinkedIn from that company? Show of hands. Yeah. This is where folks are looking to learn more about you. So we're going to talk about how to build a cohesive brand in your LinkedIn. And we're going to start at the top. If you want, you can pull up your own LinkedIn page and follow along as we go through these different sections. I'm going to cover, just for the purposes of time, just some of these core sections that I think are really important. There are a lot of other details I could share. I feel like that would take even longer. So the first things first is when you are starting to work on your LinkedIn, I suggest going into your settings and making sure that your notifications are off, especially if you're going to make a lot of changes. You don't want to notify everyone in your network that you're making changes every time you do so. When I work with clients, we often work on this in a separate document and then upload the revised page all at once for a clean beta or a clean test to see how it does. This is a living, kind of breathing document. It's going to change as you adapt qualities and skills and learnings. So this will be changing. So I want you to revisit your LinkedIn. But let's talk about kind of some of the things that you can do to shape your brand. First things first, like this is where folks the first thing they see is this top banner section. So you see Denise here has paving the way for an ethical and sustainable supply chain. She's customized her banner. How many of you have customized your banner on LinkedIn? Show of hands. Yeah, great. I love that. I think this is such a great space to utilize. And I want you to think about visually, what do you want to showcase to the world? Specifically showcasing your interests, your passions, what you do, what you put into the world. So when you're thinking about the image that you want to share, I want you to think about that. I have one client who really is pivoting into a leadership position where she's going to be presenting a lot. She's going to be a steward for her organization. So the banner she chose of herself was presenting in front of an audience. And she was in front of a microphone with a beautiful back setting. It was clear that she was presenting to a large audience. So Choose an image that evokes a feeling and inspires folks to what you want to create in the world, if that makes sense. Your headshot, what I say here, it should just be looking at the camera. The headshot you use, I want you to use an image that you want folks to see that represents you in your role. That's how I would showcase that. I've worked with a lot of conservationists, so them in their field, the nature in the background is fine. Just make sure that it's not too busy. We want to just focus on you and your face. Next, I want to talk about title versus header. So this section under her name, Denise, if you don't edit this, it's going to just showcase the current role you're in your company. But you have the opportunity to edit this section, and I really recommend that you do so. If you see what Denise has put here, she's put global executive in supply chain management, responsible sourcing, sustainability, quality management. These are all terms that speak to her expertise, her knowledge, and the types of roles she's wanting and the types of roles she's capable of, right? So when you're customizing your tagline, I want you to think about the expertise you bring, but also including searchable terms. These are often in role titles. So responsible sourcing, supply chain management, quality management. So I suggest editing this tagline to speak to those skills, expertise, and the roles that you're interested in. It's also, you can customize your URL. If you're in your LinkedIn right now, you can see it. It's on your top right side. There's like a little editing pen and it'll say URL. Mine says my first name, last name, regenerative business. So it just adds another fine point to kind of build your online presence and online brand. We're creating kind of a cohesive brand starting from the top. Whatever you put up in your tagline, you're going to reinforce in your about section. So let's talk about that about section. How many folks have kind of struggled with their about section of like what to put in there, how to frame it? Yeah. It can be difficult. The good news is that you've actually already worked on a component of that, which I'll talk about. But some considerations to think about as you're building out your about section is think about who your audience is. Who are you writing for? You want recruiters to see your skills and expertise. You're writing for colleagues in the space. Are you trying to attract clients to your consultancy? Think about your audience, speak to your audience. I suggest writing in first person. We know that you're writing this. So I feel like that also allows for a more conversational about section. The about section allows you to show your personality a little bit. It's a little less buttoned up than your resume. So we utilize it to kind of showcase who you are. This is a section where you're going to weave in your accomplishments, your accolades with your values, passions, and strengths. So I want to share an example in the about section. So that exercise we just did, that personal brand statement, you can actually just put it right at the top of your about section. That's your intro. It speaks to core skills, transferable skills, and where you want to go. Now, you might be looking at this and saying, wow, this is really wordy. And yes, that's intentional. I suggest using all of the entire section of your about section for a couple of reasons. We're infusing this with your skills and keywords that are searchable. These will be, it's really important for me is to make sure that these about sections are authentic to you, that you're reading them, you're like, yeah, that's me. And naturally, there are going to be keywords that speak to your field that are included. So for Denise, for example, she has Kaizen, Six Sigma, sustainable supply chains, all of these things that speak to her industry and that are searchable. So if a recruiter was searching for a professional in that field, I want the likelihood of her profile to pop up. It also should speak to some of the pain points you solve for, if possible, or what you do. So for example, Denise has, I foster healthy long-term supply relationships by developing mutually reinforcing activities, building common agenda, determining shared measurements, nurturing continuous communication. So we see how she fosters those relationships. We get a glimpse of her methodology. I want you to all think about that. From those core skills, those transferable skills that we talked about, how do you do the thing that you do? So say if you're a specialist in marketing communications, when you're working on marketing and comms, what are your steps to understand how to best serve your audience? Like maybe you first research, you create customer personas. I want to know that methodology. It really showcases how you do what you do in your strategy. And then what I really, really love about Denise's about section is this last paragraph. Leading with the global mindset, I apply the platinum rule to treat people as they would want to be treated to all relationships. I love that she included this platinum rule that she leads by because it does a couple of things. We get a very clear understanding of how she leads. We get a clear understanding of who she wants to work with, what types of organizations she wants to work with. So anything where you can showcase a little bit about what you believe in, it really speaks to your personality. So I'd like you to include that. Lastly, if you want to include a call to action, what I mean by that is something that invites someone to connect with you. You could say, for example, if you'd like to talk about the intersection between climate and business, let's connect. Message me here on LinkedIn. I know it's obvious that folks can message you on LinkedIn, but there's something that happens when you write that down, you have a call, you ask folks, because I'll read them and be like, oh yeah, I do actually want to connect. So I recommend having some sort of call to action. Now moving on to the work experience section. And if you have questions about the about section, chat them and we'll get to them at the end. We're going to have some ample time for questions. I want to address those questions. But let's move on to this experience section. The main thing I want to say here is that this shouldn't be a regurgitation of your resume. I want you to share at the very top the key thing that you want someone to know about you. And because we're creating a cohesive brand, it should follow the tagline. Whatever you put in the tagline, if you put focusing on, I'm a program manager and I've worked in clean tech, I want your first bullet to speak to your competencies in program management, what you've done in program management. So we're creating a nice cohesive through line from your tagline to your about section, and then flowing into your experience section as well. That first action statement needs to be a doozy because you see this click see more. It's unlikely that folks are going to click see more. Sometimes folks will really do a deep dive, but I really want that first action statement to really speak to your core skills or, what you're working on. Add your company logos. It just shows that you've taken time to really add all the details to your LinkedIn page. Share any media pieces that you have, if you've written a case study or that you can share, if you have something that your company has done that you were a part of, if you can add those media pieces, that also gives me a sense of the things you've worked on. That's great. Share your impacts and share quantitative points. I'm sure you've heard this if you've had any sort of kind of resume tutorial, is that sharing quantitative points, telling me how much, how many, helps to ground the statement and also helps to provide scope and scale to what you did. For example, if you said, supported X company's 2023 ESG initiatives, that could be so many things. So if you say supported 13 energy efficiency initiatives across 2 countries to reduce energy usage by 30%, that kind of gives me more of a scope and scale. Also, if you're just like managing teams, tell me how many people. Anytime you can give me a number, it will help ground your statement and give me an insight as to what you did. Moving on to kind of the next section where we have our endorsements. The only thing I want to say about endorsements is that let's make sure that they are within the theme that you've created, right? So if you're speaking about, for this example, kind of career coaching, talent management, executive coaching, organizational development, just make sure it's like within theme. I don't spend a whole lot of time on the endorsement section, to be honest. But what I do want to talk to you about is your recommendation section. This is such an important section in your LinkedIn. These are the recommendations at the end where folks are telling me about what it's like to work with you. And I'd like to get kind of a multidimensional viewpoint of what it's like to work with you. How many folks have recommendations on their LinkedIn page? Can I have a show of hands? Great. Yeah, these are so important. And typically what I say is I want a recommendation from someone you've worked alongside, someone you've led, and someone who's led you. So we get a viewpoint of what it's like to work with you at all of these kind of facets. One thing that you can do, I really believe that people want to support each other and write these recommendations, but it can be a daunting task. So that one thing you could do is write out your recommendation and message the person you want to provide a recommendation for you and say, hey, I'm redoing my LinkedIn. I'm making some revisions. I'd love a recommendation from you based on this work that we did together. I took the liberty to write out a recommendation. Take a look and edit it as you like. The person that you're asking is going to take a big sigh of relief because you've just done most of the work for them, and they'll add their comment, they'll add their edits, and they'll add some nuances. But this will like just make this whole process more easeful. So just some final thoughts. Your personal brand statement that you just created can help serve as your North Star. This can also support you when you're thinking about jumping into an interview. It's like, wait, what am I going to talk about? Take a look at your personal brand statement. This is who I am. These are the skills that transferable skills I possess. This is the career I want to pivot into. So using your personal brand statement as your North Star in interviews, but also in your LinkedIn, you have it in your about section, make sure it's cohesive throughout. Similar with your resume. Revisit this statement. This is an exercise that I recommend revisiting every year because it changes. You change, your interests change perhaps by slightly. So revisit this exercise. And again, this will just evolve based on your skills and your experience. And with that, I'd like to open up the floor for questions. Oh, well, I'd love to connect. Feel free to connect with me. Here's my email, my website, Green Lens Consulting. I also host a webinar series called Green Lens Career Stories, where I talk to folks in the climate space and we talk about their career journeys. I think there's so much to learn from hearing one's career story because oftentimes we just hear the end result, right? It's like, and now I'm the director of sustainability here. There was a whole journey to get there. My journey certainly wasn't linear. So I think there's a lot of learnings there, and we always have ample time for questions, and it's a really beautiful community that we've built. So feel free to join. You can learn more about those sessions. I post them on LinkedIn and on my website. And with that, let's pop into some questions.
Awesome. I wrote a few down from the chat. Would it be easy if I just read those to you? Would that be the best?
Yeah.
Well, we got a lot of questions about how your LinkedIn should not be just a replication of your resume. They said that they had a lot of people tell them to take their resume and put it on LinkedIn. So maybe just a little bit more clarification around like how it should be different, why it should be different, kind of like a little bit more on that.
Sure. So I think that having, being able to edit your LinkedIn profile, like having an about section is such an opportunity. And it's an opportunity for you to showcase more than just your skills and action statements. It's an opportunity to showcase you. So if I were to break down like how I would approach your LinkedIn about section is I would start with your personal brand statement, then give me some highlights of just these core skills that you bring, and then maybe give me an example of your work. So give me one example of something that you've done that you've just been really proud of. And you can share, what it was this like in a STAR methodology, even like what was the situation? What was the action? What was the task situation? What was the task at hand? What were the actions and what were your results? This changes the dynamic a bit. Now I'm seeing you in action. You're giving me an example. That doesn't quite happen if you just copy and paste your resume. Yes, I do want to see your skills and your talents and your experience, but that's actually what your experience section is for down below. And I think if that question is meant for the about section, it's like, that's what I want to see in your about section. In your experience section, maybe 3 to 4 bullets for each role that you've had. The reason I don't suggest that you add more is that the likelihood of someone clicking to look at all of it is pretty unlikely. So, just kind of saving your time on that. Just give me the core action statements that you want to share. It also shows that you're able to distill what you do into like 3 nice bullets or 4 nice bullets.
Awesome. Another one that we had in the chat was, what if you're not passionate about the places you have worked? I'm passionate and it can be tough to talk about what I did when I wasn't passionate about it. This is regarding the about me section. I think that kind of ties back into what we were talking about earlier. It's like, how do you convey those aspirational things if you're not necessarily passionate about what you're doing right now? Any advice there?
Yeah, certainly. So what I want to hear in those scenarios is what you did. Regardless if you were passionate or not, you accomplished some key goals in that role, right? So speak to those. What were you tasked with? What did you do? What was your methodology? Focus on that. Maybe you didn't love it. Also, that being said, say you're working working with SaaS, and you're just like, I never again want to do that work. So instead of highlighting SaaS over and over again, I would actually take a step back and speak to, well, I was working with teams, communicating with them, sharing this data information from these platforms. I also don't want you to just be repeating these things that you don't want to do anymore, if that makes sense. I want to kind of play around it and showcase what are the other things that you did with your personal brand statement as well. I don't want you to share anything you don't want to do anymore. This is really speaking to the new future that you want to create. So if you weren't passionate about a role, you weren't passionate about an aspect of your role, don't highlight that, but tell me more about the other things you did, your methodology, what you got done.
Definitely. I think that's super helpful. Another question that's kind of related to climate and everything we've been talking about is, how do I show on my LinkedIn and my experience that I was leading an ERG group at my last position? What section would that go in, since it's relevant to climate work? Would that go in the about section? Would that be an experience section? Would it be a bullet under the current job? Any advice on highlighting that employee resource group, the green employee resource group?
Yes, so especially if you're wanting to showcase this climate work as you want to pivot into climate, I want it in your about section. I want it as your second, right after your personal brand statement. You could put it in your personal brand statement, but I want it showcased there. And I also want it in your experience section. I want you to highlight it as much as you can, because that's your through line into the climate space.
Definitely. Also had another question with a lot of engagement in the chat, but it's a question about experience. They have 30 years, but find listing all of those jobs too much and actually can confuse people and potentially lead to ageism. Do you agree? What do you recommend that this person does?
I recommend putting 10 years worth of experience in your resume. And when I work with resumes, I have a section where I have a highlight section. So anything that's relevant to a role that you're applying for, I would put into that highlight section. So even if it was 20 years ago, speak to, managed a program of 30 to identify these pain points to do this. So it's all in that kind of top section. The reason of this is, if I'm taking that dreaded metric of like 6 seconds to review a resume, I want to be able to know about you in those 6 seconds. I'm going to read that top section. So add any relevant information. It might be encompassed in that 10-year mark, but if it's in that 30-year mark, you can just speak to it in that highlight section. And with ageism, I feel like the organizations that have ageism, I feel like those aren't the organizations we want to work with. I have structures around how I build the resume and cover letter, but these are, I recommend 10 years worth of experience. And the way I think about it is like your most relevant experience. That's what you want to showcase.
Definitely. Another question around do you have any suggestions for tailoring your LinkedIn profile to explicitly express your interest in green tech or sustainability when you currently work in an industry that doesn't involve either?
Yeah, this is a great question. So what I suggest is really highlighting some of these transferable skills. And one way to identify those is look at the roles that you're interested in that field and take note of these skills that you already possess. It's like, oh yeah, I've collaborated with teams, I've built strategies, I have managed programs, I've led communications. I want you to highlight those and keep kind of a log. Look at 4 or 5 of them. Make sure you highlight those in your LinkedIn about section. And then somewhere in your about section, speak to this interest in working in climate. I want to hear it. Like show me that. And secondly, when you're posting on LinkedIn, you could utilize it to kind of shape your brand as well. This is something that we didn't talk about, but you can utilize your like how you post, when you post, where you post to build your brand as well. You can start by following all the organizations that you feel like are doing the work, all the publications like Green Biz, Sustainable Brands, and then there are groups on LinkedIn. If you look at groups there's a climate tech group, there's Women's Environmental Network, there are tons of groups on LinkedIn that meet to talk about this space. You can start to curate your LinkedIn to get these feeds into your space. Then reposting these articles. Perhaps there was an article that really spoke to you about climate change and energy. Repost it and tell me a little bit about why that article spoke to you. I want to hear from you. You can do that kind of on a like nice cadence. I know we're all busy, but maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, that also helps to shape your brand. You're also now visible to the organizations and the folks working in this space, and you have visibility to them. So you can hear what's going on in the space, some of the pain points and things like that. This helps you kind of like make your movement towards the climate space in this way as well.
Definitely. Well, we have 2 questions on career breaks. The first one is, what is your recommendation on career breaks? What are some ways that you've seen it branded as? And then also, what do you put on your LinkedIn experience when you're currently not working? Is it career transition, self-employed? Always unsure about what the best practice is here.
Well, I would put we talked about the tagline. I would, use that tagline to add all of those like core skills that you want to highlight. And then I have seen folks which, put this in their experience section that they are taking a sabbatical. That's one way of addressing it. It's like I'm taking a sabbatical. Folks that have, had a pause in their career to raise a family, they put that in their about section. I'm all about being pretty transparent about that. And I do think that since COVID, I think we're a bit more understanding about these pauses and breaks that they happen and they're valuable time. I've had folks that I've worked with that we've really showcased that break. What did they do? What did they learn about themselves? So there's a real opportunity to brand yourself with that break, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Yeah. Perfect. And then I guess along the same vein of thought there, and this will probably have to be our last question for time, but any suggestions on showing like freelancer, advisor, contract work on your resume? Any tips for that? Just put it in the experience section, incorporate it into the about.
Yes, put it in your experience section, incorporate it into your about. As a consultant, I showcase my, how I work with clients and how I do my work, what pain points I solve for. So you can just speak to, in your experience section, you can write consultant, contract, and then tell me what you did. If you can't speak to the company or the organization you've worked with, I understand, like I've been there. Just tell me those key initiatives, those actions that you've been most proud of.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, we are right at the hour, and I know there's another session right now, so don't want to keep y'all. But Sharmila, anything that you want to end on, any takeaways we will share the recording out, and I'm assuming, do you want to share the slides out as well? Is that something you're comfortable with?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. We'll share the slides and the recording out, but over to you to kind of wrap things up.
All I have to say is that I am just really inspired by hearing all of your statements today. Thank you for sharing, and it brings me a lot of joy to hear everyone's superpowers and talents. We need you in this field. We need all of you. So if you're just in your first phase of exploration, continue on. I'm happy to support you. Reach out to me, and yeah, carry on. This is so great.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Mila. I really appreciate your insights. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else did too. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and we'll see you at the events later today.